Hey friends, I am coming to you today. It is finals week and I just finished a number of Zoom interviews with my intro to music education students at the university. Um, they give me such joy, and I will be honest with you, it's one of the things that I am going to miss terribly is these relationships with kiddos at the university who are growing into incredible music educators. I can't wait to see what they do, and that will definitely be one of the hardest things for me about leaving my position at the end of this year, which I've made the decision to do for the good of my family. I've been commuting 2 hours to the south for my job for the past 2 years, and it is time for me to be more available to my daughters and to my family. And so I had to make a hard decision this year. Since I made that decision, I've had a ton of conversations with both my students and people who are currently teaching, or even in other professions who are thinking about making decisions about whether to stay or whether to go in a job. And this is a conversation that I've continually had over lots of years with folks, and I've had to make myself on a number of different occasions. And so I thought it might be good for me to talk you through the things that I think are really important to consider when you are making the decision, should I stay or should I go? Which is different for everybody at different points in their career. Okay, so the first thing that I tell young educators, but really anybody who is considering whether it's time to move on from a role or not, is, have you given it time? Have you given it time? Have you given it time to do the things that you want to do in the role? Have you given it time to allow yourself to grow into the position in the ways that you need to be able to be successful? A really wise educator, when I first started teaching 17 years ago, Kathy Bott, told me, don't quit this job until you've done it for 3 years. Don't quit teaching until you've done it 3 years, because it takes that many times going through the cycle to really know that you know how to do it, right? And I remember that feeling clearly. First of all, she said that to me before I started teaching in my first year, or maybe in one of the first couple weeks of school. And I remember in year 3 thinking back to that and thinking, oh my gosh, this really feels like a profession that's sustainable for me. There's so many things we can't teach you in higher ed and in college, or in trainings. You have to know them from doing them in your own district. And so giving yourself the time to figure out what that looks like is going to be really valuable for you. Okay, next thing to think about. The grass is not always greener. You are in a position that sure might have some things that are challenging. I promise you it's not perfect. But one of the things that is true in jobs, in relationships, in just about any facet of life that you can consider is the things that you get to know intimately, right? You know the ins and outs of your job. You know the ins and outs of your relationship. You know the ins and outs of what it means to work in that role in ways that nobody else does. Just like you're the expert in teaching your students, you are the current expert in working in your job, right? You are the current expert in knowing how to navigate things in that role. And so that's where it becomes really important to understand and to think of the fact that what people are putting on social media, what people are telling you at conferences is not the full truth. And they're not lying to you, but nobody's going to go around and tell you all the bad things that are happening in their job, right? But we all have those things that are struggles. One of the great things about stepping into different jobs is that everybody has certain things that bother them and certain things that don't as much. And so you know that there are going to be challenges in each role. So you got to pick your problem. You got to decide what is worth it to you to put up with. And what is the problem you might be acquiring when you give up this problem you already know. So realizing that the grass is not always greener is going to be one of those most important things. Okay, next tip. Before you think about leaving someplace, you need to make sure that you have made it great. right? Have you done the work to really make the role amazing? Have you learned the ins and outs of the job and improved it? Because it's really easy to get into a job, especially a first or second job, before you have the experience to know the difference of what you're bringing to the table and what are inherently challenges in the job. I would encourage you, when you start identifying those points that feel challenging, see if you can figure it out. See if you can figure out how to make it better. The skills you develop in problem solving and relationship building and figuring out how to make a situation to grow and thrive, you are going to take with you no matter what job you end up in. And we pair this with that idea of the grass is not always greener, right? You got to work to make where you are incredible. A friend of mine, Mark Lawley, said at a professional development he led for us when I was a young teacher, that when you start to be personally invested in the role that you are in, when you go all in to making that thing incredible, something magical happens and it starts to give back to you as well. Too many times I see young teachers who don't really understand this, and I will also say experienced teachers as well. You aren't ready to step out of the role yet because you haven't made it your own. You haven't done the growing you need to do in that role or in that space. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't leave if it's truly time, but how do you know? We've talked about you got to give it time. The grass is not always greener, and it's really important that you grow into the role. You grow the role to be your own. You grow the program to be something that you can think about being proud of, and that you feel like you've taken it as far as you can and then some. You've left it better than you found it. If you're still feeling the itch to go, here are some things to consider. Gather information. What is it that you're longing for, right? You got to do that internal examination. What is it that you're longing for? Is it possible to meet your needs through some other means, right? And it may be and it may not be, right? Has something changed for you where the current situation no longer works? And that's the situation that I found myself in this year. I love my job. I love my colleagues. I love my students. And dang it, I'm going to miss all of that so much. But my personal situation changed. And I realized that I need to live in the location that I'm living. That for my family is the right decision. And so because of that, it was time for me to make a decision to move on. But it wasn't a decision made lightly. It took years to discern whether that was the right thing. And I think gathering information, talking with people who are, for instance, if you're a choir director and you're thinking you want to be in a larger program, talk to people who run larger programs. Like, make some time at conferences or on the phone or on Zoom or in person to connect with people who are doing the types of jobs that you envision yourself being in. Really try to get a sense. Create some questions you can ask people so you can have some consistency in gaining their responses. Consider what you want to know about what that might look like. Ask about what relationships are going to be like in working with administration in a larger school, with scheduling in a larger school. Maybe you're drawn to be in a smaller community, or you might need to move for a spouse or for to take care of a parent or something like that. Like, life happens, and there are times when we need to make decisions that will require a change. And so I encourage you to gather the information that you might need, right? To do the work, to really be informed about whatever decision it is that you're making, and to have a logical path forward that has been thoughtfully planned out. So that's a thing that I can help you with. If you are facing some kind of decision-making process right now, you're feeling like it might be the end of your time in a certain place, or you're feeling the itch to start thinking about what's next for you, that might be graduate school, that might be some sort of training or change. I am around to chat that through with you. So this is the perfect thing that we can talk about in educator coaching with elevated harmonics. If you're interested in that information, I will leave it down in the description of this video, and we can talk about what that might look like for you to work one-on-one to gain some insight. I can help to provide some framework for you, help to develop a set of questions that you can use for personal reflection and also data gathering so that you can really make an informed decision about what the next step is for you. I hope you have an awesome week, friends. I will talk to you very soon. Take care.